Alright guys, it is time for your monsters. So you should be looking at part 1 of your rubric. Make sure that you have read through the direction page. We're going to go over it in class. If you were absent the day we went over it, check with a neighbor and get all the notes. So, first things first, you're going to pick out your pattern. There are 5 to choose from. Remember, the more details on the pattern, the longer this is going to take you. I'm not trying to discourage you from doing one of those. Just understand the monsters that have horns and spiky hair, things like that, will take more time. So, you're going to cut out a copy of the pattern. You need to trace one of my copies onto a folded or half sheet of paper. Do not try to make a huge monster. Trace your own copy and use the paper scissors that are in the back of the room. The sewing scissors are just for fabric, and you'll end up with your own little copy of your monster. Once you have your monster, your notes should say cut on a piece of folded felt, because we would have amended the original directions. So my felt is folded so that my monster fits. If I want to do a few less cuts, I can line my monster up on the edges, and that will save me time cutting. Plus it will leave me a larger piece of felt for scraps, that if your classmates want to use it, it's not wasting so much. So once your pattern is cut, your felt is folded neatly, I'm going to pin my pattern to my felt. Use that tuck, tuck, stuck method. We should see the pin head and the point on the same side. You notice that none of my pins are hanging over off the pattern. If they do that, I can't cut, because I can't take my scissors and cut through a pin. So your pins should always stay within the confines of your pattern. And make sure I put one down each leg of the monster to hold those pieces in place, and one on each arm. Okay. Now that my pattern is pinned on, none of my pins are hanging over the edge, I'm going to take my sewing scissors, and these are the ones I told you guys about, and I'm going to cut out my pattern. Remember, the strongest part of your scissor is going to be down here. Trying to cut with the tips of your sewing scissors is only good for tiny little snips. Use this part down here. It's sharper and it's stronger. Long, full-length cuts are what you want. If your scissors are not cutting the felt well, find another pair. But the fabric scissors, if you're cutting down by the handles, you should get nice, smooth cuts. Okay, see how nicely that's cutting out? Smooth edges mean it's going to be easier to sew as well. If you accidentally cut a little of the paper of your pattern with the sewing scissors, that's okay. Accidents happen. But cutting the entire pattern with your sewing scissors is going to make smoke come out my ears. So please, please, please use the right scissors. Okay. See what I mean? How I have a nice large piece left for other people to use? This is how we conserve materials and not be wasteful. Okay. Once your little guy's cut out, you can take your pins out. Okay. I suggest you put a couple pins in the monster just so the pieces don't come apart. But since you're going to be putting your details only on one side, you don't need to permanently adhere him to himself. Set your pattern aside, and now with your pattern that's left, you're going to draw your details. This needs to get drawn and shown to the teacher before you start sewing. This is where that checklist on your rubric is going to come into play.